Let's first address our top story tonight, and that is on the purported phone call between Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. So did the United States President-Elect Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin speak over a call? Well, that's what the Washington Post claims. It also claims that Trump reportedly told Putin to not escalate the war in Ukraine just a few days after he won the U.S. presidential elections. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a twist in this deal. Well, the Kremlin has denied these claims, dismissing completely that a conversation ever happened between these two leaders. It called these reports completely untrue, quote-unquote, and quote-unquote, once again, pure fiction. But is there a future contact planned between the two sides? Well, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that there were no concrete plans yet. Remember, one of Donald Trump's rousing pitches this entire U.S. election has been to bring peace in Ukraine. He's almost come across as a tariff hawk, but a war dove. Just last Thursday, remember, President Putin praised Trump for his resilience and expressed Moscow's readiness for dialogue with the United States under Trump's leadership. So the question is the ball now in Trump's court, or are there more moving pieces to the story? We'll discuss this and many more angles with our guest who's joining us tonight, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former ambassador to Jordan, Libya, and Malta. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us here on ET Now. The Washington Post reporting that Trump-Putin spoke, but the Kremlin is now denying that the two leaders actually had a chat. He's, remember, made calls to at least 70 world leaders, but this one is not just clear yet. So what's happening here, Ambassador?
Well, one thing we are sure that President Trump has been, from during his campaign, has been talking about ending this war the very first day he takes over. And I was at the World Eye Discussion Forum where President Putin was answering many questions, and this was one of the questions, whether he will talk to President Trump. And he congratulated him, and he said, yes, I'm ready to talk to him. So it was logical that there would be some kind of a discussion that will take place. Whether it actually took place or not, it's very difficult to say. I would also not fully give credibility to the Washington Post report in that sense, because it has its own angles to give to the whole story. But as you know, that President Trump continues and President Putin is willing to talk to Trump. And he even said it, that all such proposals which are given, including that by Trump, needs serious consideration. So that was exact wording used. So I doubt very much that there is no connection. Some discussion could have happened, because a few days ago, President Zelensky also spoke to President Trump, and then Elon Musk was present during that call. So I think that he's trying to find exactly what is going to the meeting ground. You know, the first thing would be how to put a ceasefire on. And I think that would be the first thing. And then thereafter, what happens to the captured territory by Russia, and what are going to be the conditions for the continuing the ceasefire and settling the issue. So that's not so easy. Thirdly, we now need to also look at that the NATO and the Europeans are not on the same page as Trump.
Absolutely, Ambassador. And given Putin's stance at that event in Sochi, which I believe that you were also attending, where he stated that Western sanctions have failed and the world still needs Russia, and of course the old world order has irreversibly passed. You know, when you say that there could be a conversation happening between the two sides, we saw the denial coming in from the Kremlin. But how soon do you expect a conversation like that to happen, and how soon do you think Trump will be able to convince President Putin to sit on that negotiating table, which he's been avoiding? And I think if you look at his speeches, he's just being more assertive about the Russian side.
I think one thing is for sure, that there is a war fatigue across the spectrum, be it the Russians, be it the Ukrainians, or be it the West and the United States itself. They have had problems of inflation and other things also. So Trump has a reason to end these wars, and he's the only one who can really end these wars. And there is a question is how much support which President Biden wants to continue if he gives $60 billion, which he has promised, and before he leaves, or for that matter, authorizing the usage of the long-range weapon systems against Russia, then it'll make Trump's quest rather difficult. At the same time, Putin is preparing to continue for a long haul also at the same, and talking of a new Eurasian security architecture and all those things. So the world has really moved away a lot in the past 4 years. But everybody is looking for a face saving, in my view, and somewhere some kind of assessment has to be made how the ceasefire can be achieved at this stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ambassador. And amidst all of this, the point that you made about Ukraine, of course, this bonhomie between Trump and Putin, there are certainly jitters about Ukraine's future as well. And that's something that the U.S. Defense Secretary also stated, saying that Ukraine's safety has not diminished post the United States election results. So what's expected on that piece, really?
Well, that's as I told you that Ukraine has been crying for more arms and ammunition to fight, and also authorization to use these weapon systems against Russia directly. There have been attacks mounting on both sides. Escalation is seen from time to time, but there is definitely a war fatigue, and especially on the front of the manpower, both sides. But Russia is far bigger, far stronger in this, and appears to be gaining much more, 18-20% of the whole territory that they have occupied. Now that will come into question, and exactly that's the Russian-speaking population. What happens to them? What will be the kind of agreement that will be reached on that? And some of Trump's advisors have said the Crimea discussion is out of question. Russia is not going to leave because of its geostrategic requirements. So I think that it's too early to say. It's only I can only say what I guessed in Sochi and what I hear all through from President Trump, because Trump is not a warmonger. He may be a bully, but not a warmonger. So I think that he wants to reduce these wars or stop these conflicts to the extent that he can, and Putin appeared willing to do so. Now, those conditions are not easy to be met by both sides, because both Russia and Ukraine at the moment are have vertically opposite positions. Now, on the other hand, Russia also thinks that this is not a war with Ukraine, it is a war with the West, and West means the rest of the Europe as well. Now the Europeans are at the moment not giving up, so it's a bit of a difficult scenario at the moment. Unless it fully uh, opens up, I think it'll be difficult to conclude exactly which way things are moving.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ambassador. There are too many moving pieces, and all of these are very, very complex pieces. If you look at the Trump administration the last time, and of course this time, of course, Putin not really ready to negotiate. He has very, very strict terms so far as, Ukraine's joining of the NATO alliance is concerned. And of course, like you said, that now the whole global world order is fast changing. There are new realities that are emerging. But let's also look at Dr. S. Jaishankar's comments as well, who's stated, and I quote, that a whole lot of countries are worried, but not us. And Putin also last week at that Sochi event also stated that India is a natural partner and ally for decades. Now, I want to come back to Mr. Jaishankar's comment. Let's take a look at what exactly he said, and then I'll pursue my questions further with you.
I know today a lot of countries are nervous about the U.S., okay? Let's be honest about it. We are not one of them.
So, Ambassador, who was Dr. Jaishankar here referring to? And is India being currently over-optimistic given the fact that Trump's batted vociferously for America first? There's several, foreign policy and geopolitical, policy developments that are happening wherein every country is thinking of its own interests first.
Well, I think it's quite fashionable, and rightly so, to say America first, India first, China first. Everybody tries to serve its own national interest, to make the country stronger, to avoid the trouble spots. And that's a normal thing for every country to do so. And India does the same. So it's quite nice. And Trump has come on this Make America Great Again, or Make America Work Again, and America First. Those are his essential, tools he's trying to, or the slogans that he has been talking about. And he had done something about this during his previous term. At the same time, what Dr. Jaishankar was mentioning is that India is in a good spot, for the simple reason that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump do have tremendous regard for one another, rather fondness. And Prime Minister Modi was one of the first three leaders to have congratulated Trump. And Trump has been speaking very highly of Prime Minister Modi all through. and regards him as a very strong leader. So I think from that point of view, a large number of countries, everybody runs to congratulate an American president, and especially if he happens to be Trump, because Trump was seen to be an unknown quantity very often. You can't say how he will behave, but the fact that he holds India in great regard, that gives you a certain comfort level. I mean, a large number of people, leaders in the world, are unable to access to the White House. So whether it was Biden, he also hosted Prime Minister Modi. We have had 6 Quad summits, and next year, if the Quad summit is held by India,
Yes.
Trump most likely will come here in 2025.
Yes.
So I think that we are in a
Right.
good spot, and that's what Dr. Jaishankar
Right.
mentioned. We don't have to worry about our relationship with the United States because there happens to be a bipartisan support, number one, and Trump personally is quite keen on doing it. Of course, there will be issues like tariff, like the immigration, like other things, and they will be handled because we know how to handle
No,
them.
Ambassador, when you mentioned the tariffs, definitely. Ambassador, when you mentioned about tariffs, that's definitely a concern. And of course, every analysts are overall and geopolitical experts are concerned about the possibility of a larger tariff war going across the world. And that will, in fact, in turn, impact the global economy. But my question is, how much will Trump 2.0 will be motivated by transactionalism? Because like I said, geopolitical ties are now being driven by self-interest. So it's not really like Trump has a great relation with the Prime Minister. Trump has a great relationship with India per se, but of course that factor of transactionalism definitely comes into play, even though there is a fair play of fair transaction in terms of several sectors. There is AI, there is tech, there is deep tech, there is of course clean energy, defense, and so many other sectors. And this is something, this concern of transactionalism in Trump 2.0 is a concern that's been raised by some of the Congress party's tallest leaders, including several economic experts as well.
Well, I'm not an economist, nor am I a politician. Only thing I can tell you is that every foreign policy is transactional in nature. This system of buy and all that, that is gone and passé. Today, every country, be it India, be it China, be it USA or Russia, they try to transact for their own interests and try to get the best deal in the process. Now, of course, Trump, the largest trading partner is the United States for us. And Trump considers India as a tariff king. And so he'll definitely ask India or try to push India. But that's where our diplomatic prowess will come about. Negotiability. How do we give and take? Because there is nothing always giving or taking. So it has to be a give and take business on both. Plus, United States is also not the only power in the world. There are many other markets. There are, as you mentioned, there are several other multipolarity is becoming increasingly more prominent. And so we have many choices, whether it is BRICS or Quad or SEO. There are so many other countries with whom we deal with. China is our second largest trading
Absolutely.
partner. And there is also a certain thought taking place. So I think we'll have we have maneuverability, so to say. And in foreign policy, every day is a new day.
Absolutely. So lots of interesting developments expected in the coming few months. But Ambassador, my last question to you before we let you go. In 2022, Joe Biden said that he actually pressurized India to not buy Russian oil and said that that's not in India's interest. However, India has continued to do so. But under Trump, a lot of the emphasis will also be given on increasing the domestic production of oil or shale. So that pressure then eases on India now?
Well, I think that if there is a normalization of ties between USA and Russia, that will definitely be to our advantage, even in our neighborhood and otherwise. I mean, unnecessary pressure that these countries try to put on India while buying oil for our own interest from Russia is something. And as you know, today, Dr. Jaishankar was at the Russia-India Business Forum. He spoke that our trade is likely to touch $100 billion. So we are continuing in that direction, and that we will continue to do so. So as far as USA is concerned, it is the largest producer of oil and gas today, including with shale, and it will like to capture the new markets. But in the meantime, in the past 4 years, that the problem is that this fracking and all those things that will happen, more shale and other things and his disdain for the climate change agreements and all that, which he calls as the hooks, is something that could be a concern for the world. And of course, for the developing countries as well. But as far as we are concerned, I think it'll ease certain pressure. But then there is another side to it, and that is what will be his stance over Iran. I mean, that's where the cuts of sanctions are something that is staring us in the face. So I think that this will be on the balance. While with the United States, our relationship will continue to grow, strengthen under Trump 2.0. But at the same time, challenges in every relationship is enormous.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. And those challenges some of them at least will continue to persist. But at the same time, Dr. S. Jaishankar also stated on the Russia side, the two sides have affirmed their commitment to increasing the bilateral trade to $100 billion and, of course, trading in rupee and ruble. On that note, Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts on this crucial discussion and debate. Thank you very much.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.